With us now to talk more about what comes next, California Senator Alex Padilla, who sits on the Judiciary Committee. Senator, thank you for being with us this morning. You tweeted after the news broke out that, quote, "It's time for Congress to get off the sidelines. We must protect the fundamental right to choose." Senator, so what happens next?
What happens next is we keep trying, whether it's putting the Women's Health Protection Act back up for a vote or any other measure that will codify women's reproductive rights. It was important before the leaked ruling last night. It's now more urgent than it's ever been. But Jose, I also want to sort of pan back and give us a bigger picture of context here. As you remember, about a month and a half ago, we were in the midst of the confirmation hearings for soon-to-be Justice Jackson, and a conversation about faith in the judiciary. People's confidence in the Supreme Court is in question. And the two big news stories we've heard from the Supreme Court since are Ginny Thomas's text messages and her involvement with January 6th, the insurrection of last year, and now this. So this, ladies and gentlemen, watching from home, is a preview of what's at stake this November. If you want to know what's at stake if Republicans regain the majority, you just got a small appetizer for what's going to happen.
So what happens if in November things go your way? How would this be different?
Well, it's not just things going our way in terms of keeping a Democratic majority. It should mean growing our Democratic majority. But Jose, consider this. A woman's right to choose is supported by the vast majority of the American people. It's been considered settled law for nearly 50 years. So we can't let Republicans off the hook. I'm surprised that, if there's a Democrat or two that we still need to work on, why isn't there at least half of the Republican members of the Senate standing up for what their own constituents support and depend on? It is a matter of health, and it is a matter of equity, because we know that such a drastic change would have a disproportionate impact, especially on lower-income women, lower-income families in all states, not just blue states, not just red states, but across the country.
So, Senator, about codification of this, is this an actual possibility? I mean, the Senate as it is today, it doesn't seem like this would be something that the Senate, both Republican and some Democrats, could do.
Look, I'm hoping that this leaked ruling from last night changes things. What might have been a theoretical concern for some has become a clear and present danger, an imminent ruling from the Supreme Court of the United States. If that's the last straw that changes some hearts, then let's do it, and Congress can act now.
Senator, I want to talk about another issue that is very close to your heart as well. You were part of a small group of senators that met late last week to see if there's any way to move forward on immigration reform. Where do things stand there?
Yeah, so yet another issue that's critical and been pending. So I'm hopeful once again, Jose, as you know, we put a lot of time and energy into bipartisan immigration negotiations last year. Didn't happen. We looked at the budget reconciliation process, trying to write the Build Back Better package as a means to reforms, and that hasn't happened. And talks, frankly, stopped until a hearing of the immigration subcommittee that I chair nearly 2 months ago. And we were focused on not just the Dreamers conversation, but documented Dreamers specifically. And you heard Senator Cornyn and Senator Tillis in public on C-SPAN. We can play back the tape saying, we ought to be able to agree to this and fix this. So in my opinion, that reopened the door to negotiations about immigration reform. Even if there's some small but significant steps that we can take on a bipartisan basis, let's make some progress. Let's build some momentum. Let's build some goodwill and continue to tackle the larger immigration changes that we need.
And Senator, I am so glad that you oftentimes do underline that there is a difference between the border crisis and immigration reform. They're two totally different things, although some in the Senate and in the House are insistent of putting those two issues together. Can there be some compromise, some bipartisan efforts that could work that could, in effect, separate those issues and talk about immigration reform?
Yeah, so a couple of things, Jose, and I do think there's a ripe opportunity soon. One is exactly your point. If we can identify a handful of items that already have bipartisan support, whether it's Dreamers, farm workers, some visa recapture and employment-based visa changes, things like that, that we can advance to build that momentum, to build that goodwill across party lines, I think that would be healthy for the greater effort. Second, people are talking about Title 42, so it's important to remember this. People have come to the United States over the course of years from countries around the world for a number of reasons. Some people come on work visas, some people come on tourist visas or student visas, and yes, some people come seeking asylum. That is lawful based on national and international law. Title 42, when it was put in place, was a public health directive, not an immigration law. And it's been abused in the years since. But it was put in place in the early days of COVID because of what we didn't know about the pandemic. If the pandemic is easing, if the restrictions are coming down, if the masks are coming off, you no longer have the justification for Title 42. And I join with my colleagues in saying, as we transition out of Title 42, we need to make sure that the border remains safe, orderly, and that the asylum process is a humane one, once again, not the disaster that we saw from the previous administration.
Senator Alex Padilla, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jose. Take